Hello, this is Sorgen next from the blog soar to the max.wordpress.com. I got a request by a listener to give my opinion on the tree change dolls. I've had to do and redo this video many times just so I could give a fair but truly honest review of these dolls, especially as a doll collector and Bratz fan. Because my first video I think was trashy. I was just like, ew, nope, don't like these dolls. But then I did some further research and investigation. I mean, I've done my research and investigation on them before, but not that much because I just didn't like the idea that they were deconstructing Bratz dolls. But I thought I would give an honest but fair review, especially as a doll collector and Bratz fan. So let me just help break down what tree change dolls are. So what are tree change dolls? Tree change dolls were designed by a woman named Sonia Singh, a Tasmanian woman who took throwaway dolls and stripped them of their high-maintenance, hyper-sexualized, and hyper-fashionable appearance to make them look more down-to-earth or more like little girls. She's most popular for taking the Bratz dolls, a group of dolls known to be hated by most conservative feminists, and give them feminist makeovers. But she's taken apart dolls that aren't the Bratz as well. For the sake of this video, though, I'll mostly bring my opinions on the Bratz tree change relationship because that seems to be getting the most praise from the feminists and moms who support the tree change brand. So first, I want to talk about what I like about tree change. First, I think all dolls are works of art and should be respected for what they are, even dolls I wouldn't personally collect. Sonia clearly has a vision and a goal, and if she's on her grind finding people who are largely interested, I'm not going to sit here and try to criticize that. So I respect Sonia as a doll creator, as someone who wants to create a certain kind of dolls for a certain type of demographic. And I respect that vision and her particular artistry. I think that she does the painting and her mother does the sewing. I think if you want to do that in your basement and you have that kind of hobby, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I would love for more people to have doll hobbies. So, in that regard, I see tree change as positive. Second, I think that the positive thing about tree change is that there actually might be a market out there for these dolls. These dolls target conservative communities, religious groups, conservative nations and cultures, and protective moms. Obviously what's on the shelves is not appealing to them. And so I would rather them find a doll that is than not buy dolls at all. I would love for the toy industry to balance, dolls like Bratz out with dolls that aren't. I don't expect every doll to be like Bratz. Okay? In fact, I don't think they should even try to be like the Bratz or Barbie because you can't be your own thing. So, I think it's also okay that they seek to target girls who are not as interested in fashion, and that's all right. As an adult, I understand that mothers have a right to what they buy their child and that they seek to protect their children. And it's not my place to criticize what goes on in other homes. I only have an issue when you step out of your lane and decide you want to petition to take Bratz off of shelves or you want to turn the real Bratz line into tree change to suit your agenda. Because now you're speaking for everyone else and you're putting off your morals and ethics and your idea of what's wholesome and not off on everybody else. That's when I have a problem. But if you want to try some arts and crafts in your own backyard for your family and friends and other families who agree with your message, be my guest. Third, I like that she decided to rescue throwaway dolls and create them into her own masterpiece. That's a very notable thing for her to do. It's horrible to see dolls go to waste, in my opinion. I can't stand to see dolls sitting on garage sales and things like that. And it's great that she's trying to do something positive with these castaways. So she's trying to reinvent them and make them playable again. And I think that that's a good goal. Okay, I think that's a good goal, honestly. I don't like that she's taking Bratz dolls and show that she can do it, but She seems to be taking all kinds of dolls besides Bratz, even dolls that most parents would even consider wholesome. But she seems to just be against any fashion dolls. And I don't know if she's trying to make these dolls into fashion dolls. They have the 12-inch design, but I mean, they don't seem much different from Bratz dolls, especially the fact that they're still just as skinny and, you know, but other than that, they seem like there's a positive intent. That's what I see. There's a positive intent. Now, despite the fact that I see some positive in these dolls, especially particularly in the golden message, obviously I have so many qualms with these dolls. I am not a huge tree change supporter personally. And there are 6 points that I want to talk about that I just can't get behind. And that's why this might not sound too good, might not sound too politically correct. It might not be to everybody's liking, but that's okay. I came to give my opinion, and I'm going to be honest. There are a lot of things about tree change I just can't get behind. First thing that bothers me is the idea that loving fashion or dressing in avant-garde and edgy attire refers to being high maintenance, superficial, or sexualized for starters. Because that's what she said in her about page, okay? I have a problem with the idea that it's the dolls that these people have gotten in their minds, that it's the dolls that are influencing girls to be high maintenance or sexualized or too superficial. Um, Entirely. It's the dolls' fault. The dolls are the main reason, and they're not. Okay? The real inspiration behind fashion dolls are moms, sisters, and famous celebrities. Ruth Handler, the creator of Barbie, noticed that her own child was more interested in the adult paper dolls than the kids' paper dolls. Why? Because they could pretend to be like their older sisters and their mom. They could pretend their doll is going to prom, driving a car, etc. The point is this: dolls emulate the world, not the other way around, especially fashion dolls. If you all weren't acting like a fashion doll in your own homes, your daughter wouldn't want to buy a doll that looked like one and wouldn't want to become one in the first place. Women do largely enjoy fashion. It helps us express ourselves, and I don't think it's wrong to do that. I don't think it should be discouraged. Now, I do think there should be a balance. There should be, it shouldn't be promoted that you should only wear these outfits just to please somebody or please the opposite sex. But I don't see that in Bratz dolls. I don't see that in Bratz. Okay, so I don't understand where they get that mentality. Miss Handler's idea became a success not because the dolls influenced the girls, but because the fashion doll was the outlet for something they already aspired to be based on what they saw their mothers and sisters doing. And that came from their vision of their mothers. Okay? So the appeal of fashion dolls is they allow girls to imagine a world they can't possibly live at their age. It gives them that outlet in their own space. They may not be able to get away with wearing many of the outfits or indulging in the subcultures the dolls represent, but the dolls give them that creative outlet. It sparks their imagination. They get to play with the Catwoman. They get to play with a girl dressed in punk. They get to pretend to be in a rock band, okay? They get to pretend to ride motorcycles. This is something they wouldn't even be able to do in their own world. And these kinds of fashion dolls give them that outlet. When I was a little girl, I used to pretend my Barbie lived life just like my mother. She went to work, drove a car, used a credit card, and dressed up on fun dates with her husband, because that's what my mother did. Okay? In my little mind, I didn't even think that this doll was sexy or perpetuating a sexy image. That just didn't come to my mind. Bratz never came off to me as sexualized or hyper feminine either, especially in 2001. When Bratz came out in 2001, they were wearing beanies, bandanas, baggy pants, and sneakers. How do you get hyper feminine out of that? They look tomboyish and urban, not sexy or anything like that. In fact, I can't see it in the 2001 dolls. Even as Bratz got more outrageous than fashionable and sexy, you know, as they got more feminine, they became focused on, those outrageous outfits, you know, fitting with edgy subcultures like the punk rock and gothic scene. I mean, most people wouldn't dare to walk out in some of the outfits they wore, but it was fun. They were fun to look at, but most people wouldn't dare say, I just wouldn't see sexy. I can't see sexy in Pretty and Punk. I'm sorry. I mean, there's some aspects of the Bratz that are sexy, but it's hard to sexualize a lot of their outfits. Just because they're showing skin doesn't mean it's sexualized. Okay, there's a difference. You can show little skin and still be sexualized. Okay, and objectified. Okay, and that look at Barbie. She hardly shows any skin, and she's still sexualized. She's still objectified as a figure. So a lot of these feminists back in '01, and let's just be real, they attack Bratz for their urban appearance, okay, rather than their revealing and edgy appearance, which show how they thought of urban communities where people of color often reside. It was only when that criticism fell through that they start readjusting their target towards their revealing clothing. I've heard black people who support tree change tell me that Bratz doesn't truly represent ethnicity and they're mocking people of color. And that might be the case in their perception, but as a child who saw these cartoonish urbanite dolls of color in my 10 and 11-year-old mind, those urban qualities connected more to me as a girl of color in an urban community than what all the other dolls were offering, which fit more with the white suburbanite trope. That's what impressed upon me. And some of the Bratz girls are actually inspired from real people, so their fashions very much are connected with those communities. Considering around 75% of the Bratz dolls are dolls of color, it's obvious that's who Bratz targets. We can even hear it in most of the urban music promoting Bratz. So whether or not we think they're mocking or not, that's who they target. That's who enjoys them. That's who connects with them. Now, as much as I love the girls with a passion for fashion, if you were to meet me, I dress boyish. Like, I get people telling me I look like a butch, okay? I don't carry the same passion for fashion that the Bratz do. You know, I'm always wearing baggy shirts and jeans. I hardly wear makeup, and my hair is usually a mess. But when I do dress up, I love to pick bold and outrageous clothing. I especially love androgynous fashion. You know, Bratz didn't turn me into anything parents would have thought it would. In fact, Bratz made me more confident in myself because I used to not like wearing the dresses that I was put in or the heels and trying to fit that mold, you know, trying not to spill anything on my clothes, try to keep my fingers and hands, you know, together, folded. I hated that, okay, because I grew up in that kind of household, okay, in a very prim household. And so looking at Bratz break fashion norms and rules, I began to feel like I didn't have to look like everybody else. I used to feel like I had to fit one wholesome feminine norm. The Bratz were beyond just fashionable. If any of these feminists would actually give the brand a chance. These dolls were bold, courageous, and creative. They inspired these qualities in me. I've dressed up in my androgynous style, and I feel proud of it. Just like the girls with the passion for fashion. They're so individualistic, they all don't have the same style. So they tell me, hey, I don't have to look like them either. Now, they don't all look like each other. And I don't have to look like them either, but I can still express myself. That's the difference between Bratz and some of these other dolls. These other dolls are telling you, dress like this, be all like us. We all look the same. You got to be like us. We all dress the same. You got to dress like us. Bratz did not give that message. Bratz said everybody looks different. Everybody dresses different. Everybody has different style. Everybody has different charms. That's the message I got from Bratz. And it helped me come to terms with my own sense of style. But I've noticed that whenever a model, a woman, or female figure is too bold and courageous, we want to silence them. We want to tell them to sit like a lady, be quiet, be meek, simmer down. You can be feminine, but that's just too much makeup. You can like clothing, but that's just too much skins being shown, too much skins. We also want to quiet down bold expression and pin these qualities with sexual expression instead of just boldness and art. It's so interesting how people can look at an appearance and associate it with a personality or behavior. It's interesting how when we look at somebody wearing a short skirt, we associate that with perpetuating sex or emulating sex or wanting sex. Or we see somebody with a belly top and showing a belly button there, that's asking for, just like back in the 1800s, showing some ankle was associated with prostitution. Like, I think it's interesting how we associate that with sexualization, because I don't see how, in my perception, how showing skin relates to sex. Because sex is an act, sexuality is a behavior. Okay, I don't understand how we associate being into fashion with being high maintenance. People can not even be into fashion and be high maintenance. They can be overly into technology and be high maintenance. So I don't understand how we associate a certain look with certain behavioral and personality traits. But that's just what that is. It's a perception. And these perceptions are formed by our culture and influences. I get that Tree Change wants to emulate a more childlike aura, but dolls who don't do that should be labeled as sexualized or high maintenance either. Just because dolls are not emulating children and are emulating adults and teens, that doesn't make them sexualized or high maintenance. There should be room for dolls that look like kids, adults, and fashionable teenagers. There should be room for dolls that allow girls to be something they can't be, rather than just things they can't. There should be a balance in toy aisles. A lot of the feminists and moms that support Tree Change often refer back to the Bratz sexualization. But if I ask them to define this sexualization, they first refer to big lips, skinny bodies, and the showing of skins. Why are big lips associated with sexuality? Who decided that? Breasts have distorted bodies, big heads, skinny bodies, big feet. Being skinny doesn't make them more physically appealing. I don't understand. They're skinny. They're teaching girls to starve themselves. How? Does nobody want to look like the Bratz? They're meant to look cartoonish. Even if they had bigger bodies, they just end up with small heads and small feet. They're meant to look like they walked out of a funhouse mirror. Why is this associated with sexuality? It's kind of weird. And why do these people associate showing skin as being sexualized? To me, these people are the ones sexualizing these dolls. They are grown up in their culture believing that showing skin means you're asking for it. Just like in the 1800s, showing ankle, was a sexualized thing. Okay? And they have that same mentality when it comes to showing a belly, showing a belly button or showing some legs. Okay? They associate it with the woman trying to reveal her body so she can get male attention. And that's not always the case with anyone who shows skin. And that's not really the case when kids look at dolls that are showing skin. I've talked about this in my article, 8 Feminists That Make Me Cringe. I plan on doing a video about that soon. But I realize that these people believe everyone has the same ideas about showing skin. Westernized thinking aligns with a European Christian-dominated culture, and that has influenced the world over because almost all the countries were colonized but 5. And even those 5 countries had pressure to adapt European standards. And this is why showing skin has been seen as a sexualized trait. Even though in many of these cultures, at one time, showing skin was not considered a sexualized trait. It's like in many African cultures, okay? It's perfectly natural to show skin and even go topless. This is because most of the people who came from Africa or lived in Africa came from a warmer climate as opposed to other cultures. So showing skin was not considered the same as it is in white-dominated cultures or Western-dominated cultures or Christian-dominated cultures, okay? Black people connected with the Bratz because these dolls aren't shaming urban and Black culture. Black people don't come from cultures where they believe showing skin is bad or sexualizing. Some of us have been westernized and we have been influenced by the Christian-dominated culture. But some of us do not believe showing skin is as bad as other people. And some of us don't believe it should be shamed. So there's a cultural clash here. In white westernized culture, That's tribalistic. That's not natural. That's sexualized. And they can't see beyond that prejudice. You know, they believe anyone who condones dolls like Bratz, they're just encouraging dolls to sexualize children. There's one thing to be ethnic, and one thing to show, skins because it's hot, but it's another thing entirely to be sexualized. Then explain to me what sexualized is, because everything you just named is what you deemed as sexualized. Another culture that doesn't mind dolls showing a little leg is Japanese culture. No, though a lot of them in reality are funny about cleavage, because I've seen that. Many of their anime characters wear short skirts and fishnet stockings, like an Aikatsu or Sailor Moon, which was written by a woman. Okay, they wouldn't see these animes as sexualizing young girls the same way Westerners would. So again, I believe tree change works for some people, but not for everyone. Not for every mom, and not for every feminist. I don't believe that everybody believes showing skin is sexualizing a doll. And they wouldn't believe that it's going to sexualize a child. Fashion dolls not only allow girls an outlet to be like adults or people they won't or can't ever be in the real world, but good fashion dolls also captures the year's fashions and act as a historical record of the times. They emulate the celebrities, the fashion designers of our era. Why do you think Barbie collectibles are so popular? Why do you think people seek older Barbies? Looking at the fashion of the times tells us a lot about how people express themselves. When I look back at Bratz dolls from 2015, I'm reminded of the popular cultures and subcultures of the times. If we only had dolls that looked like tree change, we wouldn't have that kind of model. I think it's sad that a lot of these people, especially those who call themselves feminists, want to curb women's interest in fashion, especially when the fashion industry is largely dominated by males. I believe Bratz encouraged a lot of people to become fashion designers because of their bold take on fashion and their individualistic fashion choices. Because when I see Bratz, I see bravery. I don't see the same thing these feminists see. So when these feminists attack dolls that are meant to be teen or adult figures, when they attack them for showing skin, it's almost like they're telling the world that there's only one way to be a feminist and there's only one style of dress that's appropriate, one style of dress that's proper. And I just don't agree with these ideas. My second issue with these dolls is I question whether these dolls are truly for kids or parents. And it presents another debate. Should we care what kids think when creating dolls? Should we shove what we love in a child's face, especially when it comes to playtime, or should we let them decide the kind of dolls they want to play with? On the one hand, parents should be monitoring what's fed to their child if they expect their child to grow up to be honorable and self-respecting citizens of society. In any case, they should be available to give a discussion, even if they are allowing their children to maybe watch something that's too scary or something that might be controversial, or whether they're letting them play with certain dolls or play certain video games. A child should be monitored to a certain degree. But where do we draw the line between protecting kids and allowing them to have a little small risk-taking fun? Just like when do we stop kids from getting on rides that are too dangerous for them, but allow them to get on some rides at the amusement park so they can enjoy themselves too? So when I look at tree change, the adult in me thinks they're cute and more wholesome, but the child in me would have never been interested. And the doll collector in me is not interested. Even in most of the reviews of the dolls, they mostly come from parents. And it leaves me thinking, are these toys for the kids or the parents? Again, parents should be able to buy their kid what they feel they should have. And a kid should be grateful they can even get toys. With so many kids distracted with other things nowadays, if a child isn't interested in playing with a toy, why buy them that toy at all? And I think this is why the doll industry is suffering so much, because adults are more concerned about what they think is best for kids, and they're less concerned about what actually appeals to kids. Because these kids aren't playing with them because these dolls are boring, but instead of shielding girls from growing up, they're growing out of toys and into YouTube and truly adult content. Bratz dolls are now too babyish for some of these kids. You know, Bratz dolls actually succeeded at one time in bringing older children back into the doll industry. Is Tree Change interested in being interesting to kids? Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but it doesn't seem like the creator has set these dolls in front of any child but her own daughter, who may like feel obligated to like her mother's toys. Like she feels like she gotta play with them. And I can't see too many kids like these dolls, not with so many options. You know, they often come in ordinary attire found on any dolls out there, really. You know, they can find any dolls with ordinary attire. You know, and Tree Change isn't any different. You know, Tree Change doesn't have any accessories, which are apparently demonized too. um, you know, they could at least come with some shovels or tree swings or something. I mean, I know she's working on a budget, and these dolls were once throwaways, and people can create their own doll accessories and furniture. But the appeal to a child isn't just there. It just isn't there, you know. I've shown several children in my family and some of the children I work with a lineup of dolls they would like to play with, and they never picked up Tree Change. That was not a doll they wanted. It did not appeal to them. It was like, for them, it looked like a doll that they reinvented themselves. Okay, a doll that they've taken apart, redone the hair, dolls that they've added their own makeshift outfits on. So the Tree Change did not appeal to them. It just didn't. Therefore, I would say this project isn't for the kids. It's not for kids' enjoyment or entertainment. I guess kids can use their good old imaginations, but their play experience is very limited by these dolls. These dolls are created to satisfy parents. That's all. And I can't get behind that, because I would like a child to actually want to play with an item I buy them. Otherwise, why waste my money on a doll at all? The fun with dolls is being able to use your imagination and be in control of your own world the way you like, right? At least that's what I think. So I don't think Tree Change offers that to girls. I mean, they could undress Tree Change and make them look any way they want, but it's very limiting. It's very limiting in comparison to the other dolls on the shelves, which offer so much more. And I think that these dolls were meant to give kids what parents think they should have rather than what kids want. And sometimes when we try to force what we think kids should have, we disconnect ourselves from the kids. And so I can't see Tree Change being a big deal as a result. The third issue I have with Tree Change is that the creator, and maybe this is just me, but she seems to be trying to strip away ethnic features and styles that came out of the Black and Latinx communities at largely. Okay, when I looked at the Tree Change dolls, the creator mostly dealt with lighter skinned dolls. I didn't see any Felicias. I didn't see any Felicias in her lined up. Okay, she rounded most of their eyes and thinned most of their lips, you know, and that just brought out to me exactly how people like her and her supporters actually think of these ethnic features. You know, ethnic features are largely frowned upon in society, especially in the West. Big lips are considered sexualized. Like, the bigger the lips, the more sexualized. Like, having pouty lips is a sexualized thing. I find it ironic that many feminists and moms who dislike the Bratz end up being the main ones to sexualize large lips, as if that represents anything sexual. Real people have large lips without plastic surgery. Bratz emulates that appearance. Again, with over 75% of the Bratz dolls being dolls of color, obviously they're going to have ethnic features. That's a huge deal. Bratz were originally meant to represent that culture, which is why they connected mostly to that audience to begin with. They also seem to attack Bratz's urban way of presenting themselves and instead place the westernized and Tanzanian standards of what is right and wholesome. So I feel that these dolls are seeking to wipe away ethnic features. I don't understand why their lips have to be thinned. I understand why she wants to take off the makeup, but why do the lips have to be thinned and the eyes rounded and beady? I don't understand how that looks better or how that relates more to girls. Again, you can't make a doll look too realistic. They're never going to look that realistic. but it seems to me that she's taking away ethnic features. And it also seems to me that she's not really concerned with changing all aspects, negative aspects of these dolls, because these dolls are still rather skinny. There are no body positive dolls, so I don't understand how these dolls are considered better than Bratz, not in my perception. The fourth issue is this. I would never collect them as a doll collector. It's not original, okay? They're kind of boring, and the dolls lack power. Like, what makes these dolls unique in the market? You know, the idea that there are a sea of sexualized dolls in comparison to tree change is false. These feminists and moms who say this don't know crap about the doll industry. They've never even, most of them don't even pay attention when they walk down the toy aisle. So I'm not even listening to them. In fact, if any of them have ever walked down a doll aisle in the last 20 years, most dolls are wholesome, like Tree Change. Unless you could consider American Girl, Cabbage Patch, Disney Princesses, Live Dolls, and Project MC Squared to be sexualized, then you're just weird and paranoid. There are far more innocent looking dolls than dolls that are bold and daring. Why do you think Barbie and Bratz have gotten so much attention? Because they have been doing what other dolls are not doing. They're the only artistic, expressive dolls on shelves that aren't just limited to just appealing to moms and little girls. They're about fashion and art. They're artistic dolls. And they're getting this attention because they have been doing what other dolls are not doing. And that's why people take notice. Industries thrive on originality, not on what's common. The press is more concerned about what gets people talking. Now, you can say that I wouldn't go so far as to say toy aisles are inundated with sexualized, quote, quote, sexualized dolls, but the press puts a lot more emphasis on dolls that are unique, like Bratz and Barbie. Okay, and that could make it seem like these dolls dominate. And they do. They have a larger influence because more people are purchasing them, because they appeal to a larger demographic. They not only appeal to kids, they appeal to adult collectors. They appeal to older people. So they have a larger fan base than these little dolls that are sweet but are more for kids, okay, that no adult would even care to collect, okay? So the good thing about Tree Change is that it got people talking, okay, unlike the other sweet dolls, but it didn't get people talking long enough, and it's not going to continue to get people talking long enough. You know, I've been a doll collector since the 1990s, and I can honestly tell you there was nothing remotely unique about Tree Change. You know, I get cupcake doll vibes, Our Generation, Strawberry Shortcake, My Little Pony, Our Journey, My Life, super sweet rag type of teens. Okay? Tree Change dolls are not the only wholesome dolls trying to break the market and aren't the first to gain public attention. They're not unique. There are plenty of wholesome dolls. And that's why Tree Change is going to have more competition than Bratz and Barbie, because there are no dolls like them. And any dolls that try to be like them will be compared to them. But there are plenty of Tree Change out there. There's plenty of Tree Change. They're probably not reaching Tasmania, where Sonia sings from, but there's plenty of them out there. Okay? So ask yourself, why do all these seemingly wholesome dolls fall through? Why aren't they breaking through to the presses? It's because no matter how hard you try to feed them to kids, kids don't find inspiration in dolls that allow them to do what they always do daily. Why imagine what they can do in real life when they can just do it? I mean, they're fun companions. They're cute. But they don't allow kids to imagine anything beyond their everyday world. So they're like, well, why do I sit here and play with a doll that's just like me? Very few dolls are like American Girl, where they both showcase young girls doing things that relate to girls today, but then also allow girls to imagine different scenarios, like different times and eras and places and adventures. Especially having that book series allows them to do that. So I think that very few child-like dolls are like American Girl, and I understand that they're pricey, But I think that that is the appeal of American Girl. They don't just wear wholesome fashion. They're showing you fashions from different times. You have accessories that show you different times. You're able to travel back in time. But these other dolls, they're a bore. Yawn. Like, yawn. The mom in me wants to love all dolls and wants my child to play with them all. The doll collector in me, however, would never buy some of these dolls. I don't buy dolls just because they're edgy necessarily. I buy dolls that are unique, exciting, entertaining, have shown an ability to allow expansion and display creativity and vision beyond the toy aisles. For me, dolls are more than just playthings. They are works of art. Real designers, inventors, and stylists work hard behind the scenes to get their visions across on aisles rather than runways. This is why Toy Fair is so exciting, or rather used to be when there was more variety. But in this case, dolls should represent the vision of the designer, and that vision shouldn't be like everyone else's. I support the dolls that wow me. Tree Change doesn't do that for me. So I can't see myself putting my money behind it. It's not the type of doll line I collect 50 years from now. The dolls wouldn't tell me something about our time. Bratz, on the other hand, never cease to amaze me with how much they push boundaries. I'm always excited and waiting to see what they will try next. I love their attitude and take on the world. I love that take on the world attitude. I love their alter egos and playful attitudes towards fashion. I love their individual expressions when it comes to style. Tree Change doesn't offer me that level of interest, okay? It doesn't snap me into shape, okay? It doesn't do any of that for me. But it probably perfectly satisfies parents who aren't really interested in toys as collectors, but want that kind of influence on their kids. So it just satisfies those parents who just like, here, Becky, you need this doll, it's better for you. Now be quiet. It's the kind of doll you're gonna get. That's basically the kind of demographic Tree Change satisfies. But it can't satisfy doll collectors like me, because I'm looking at Tree Change like, where are the accessories at? Where's the Felicias at? Where are the Felicias? Okay, what's the point of this doll line? I'm not. What makes this doll line unique? I've seen plenty of Tree Change in my life. Okay, so it's just not interesting. They're boring. It's just as simple as that. The fifth issue I have with Tree Change is that I don't feel it's the perfect balancing act to Bratz. And the reason why I don't feel it's good enough to be on par or to match Bratz in influence, or to be that balancing act, to balance out the fashion forward with the girls who are not into fashion. The reason why I don't think it's a perfect balancing act is because they target different demographics. Tree Change aims to be what the Bratz and dolls like it are not, but the truth is dolls like Tree Change can't be that perfect balancing act, because they not only have different goals, but they target completely different demographics. I think it can be a balancing act to Barbie, because Barbie's target has been little girls. So Tree Change can be a perfect balancing act to Barbie, like all the other wholesome dolls have sought to be. Okay? But to Bratz, I don't believe so. The people that attack Bratz never got the memo that it wasn't intended for their 5-year-old daughter. If they want to get it for their kid, fine. But these dolls were aimed at the tween to teen audience, ages 10 to 14. In age, most girls have stopped playing with dolls and consider themselves too old to believe in, the imaginary world, or just about anything really they see in front of them. Okay? Bratz gives older girls something interesting, something that helps them develop or express themselves, a place to channel their own inner rebel, a place to channel their own identities. Okay? Tree Change aims to appear like little girls, and so that's who it ends up being for. Bratz ended up appealing to younger girls because they often want to be like their older sisters and neighbors and cousins and such. But the primary target is of age where tree change would appear too babyish to them. The perfect balancing act to Bratz would have to tackle that demographic. Because tree change fails to do that, they really can't provide that counter image opposite the Bratz. If there's a wholesome and sweet line out there that's aimed to the 10 to 14 crowd, hit me up, especially in the eyes of these feminists. Do you all know any wholesome and sweet lines that are targeted to 10 to 14? So let me know. If you know it, hit me up, because I like to see this. I can't see too many tweens and teens being interested in dolls like tree change. Okay? Then that's just a fact. Okay, so tree change can't really be that balancing act. And like I said, for little girls, it's cute and sweet and all, but it's not going to balance or stomp out Bratz's influence because it targets a different demographic. My sixth issue with tree change is Sonia Singh is destroying rare dolls that could be going to real fans of a lot of these dolls, and that bothers me. It's cool that Sonia wants to create new dolls from her yard sale purchases, but come on. There are some Bratz dolls that are so rare, they've hacked up the prices for them everywhere. Like, you can't even get the bodies separately. And when I see people not only throwing away, but destroying dolls that can potentially go to fans, it bothers me to bits. Ugh. So that's my spin on tree change. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think about these dolls. If you like them, state your name and age. Who knows, I might be wrong about these dolls. I'm open to new perspectives. If you don't like them, you are my people. Thanks for listening. Ciao. Peace.